Stage 4, long-term consistency. I know that you know your success depends on your consistency. Consistency is everything. So symptom 1, you start strong, but you lose momentum. Symptom 2, life somehow pulls you off track and keeps you off track. There are so many ways that can happen. Symptom 3, you struggle to balance multiple life priorities and life demands. So mental trap 4, the willpower fallacy. Most people think consistency is about pushing 100% all the time. But this often leads to burnout, boredom, distraction, and guilt, and it's completely not sustainable. Why do we do this? Well, we observe others' output and we just copy them. And it often requires a level of discipline beyond our current limits. New routines and habits are very difficult to integrate with your lifestyle. And we have no systems to help us stay on track. So a quick reflection here. When motivation fades for you, what systems keeps you making progress? Do you have any? How will you stay accountable knowing your own past track record? Yeah. What I mean here is if you've got a bad track record, how are you going to do it differently? How are you going to stay accountable? So how do you build long-term consistency? Here are 3 immediate focus points for you. So number 1, flexible routines. Most think consistency is about having these really rigid plans and habits. But what happens is you end up with this. You end up with broken glass. We want to be more like this because life is unpredictable and flexibility is key. Trees can weather many, many storms because they can flex with the wind. So number 1, flexible routine. You want a routine that can adapt with your level of energy. Try and create multiple gears like a bike, right? So if you've got multiple gears on a bike, it doesn't matter what hill you're on. Whether you're going downhill, you can go in a high gear. If you're going uphill, go in a really low gear and you'll spin fast, but you'll keep making progress. It means that you won't ever fall off the bike. Now, I've got another video which explains the technical side of how to build this up. I call it upper and lower limits. Check the video. I'll try and link it somewhere here. But it talks about this. The idea simply is that when you set a goal, that should be your upper limit. You want to focus on what can be your lower limit. Let's say you're working out 5 times a week is your upper limit. You probably won't be able to keep that up forever. What is your lower limit? It could be once or twice a week. Keep that going. Now check the video. Ensure your defensive playbooks are prepared and practiced. Stage 3, mental resilience. You've got to make sure that you are familiar with them because if you deploy them when you've never used them before, you will feel really uncomfortable. It will feel really difficult to execute. Number 2, habit integration. This is a really important one. Most people focus on short-term execution. They can't sustain it. And what happens is you don't want to sustain it by the end because it's so horrible. Whatever program you've put yourself on, you just don't want to sustain it anymore. We often underestimate the challenge of integration of your new habit with your existing lifestyle. This is a really, really, really interesting trap that I see a lot of people fall into. How can we visualize this? So I want you to imagine this. You're going about this. This is your existing lifestyle. This is the energy to sustain your current lifestyle. And on this day, you decide to start your new habit. What happens? You initiate it for a period of time. You bump up the energy. And then here, you reach the end of a program or something. And then you suddenly drop to 0. The number of times I've seen this. For example, when people start, they buy these fitness meals or these weight loss program meals and workouts, and they go really hard for 30 days or 90 days or 75 hard or things like that, and they end up breaking at the end and they just revert back to old routine. What's going on? Well, there's no integration. Right? You've got these 2 parallel things going on, not integrated, and no thought about how to do that. So how do you do a transition? What we can think about is this. When you introduce a new habit, you have this peak and that will feel extremely hard. But what we want to do is over time, we want to start thinking about integrating it here and raising up your energy and then meeting at some point further along the line. We can look at 2 stages. This is the initiation stage. So that could be your first 30 days. And then we have this other period, which is integration. That could be the next 30 days. Now, this is something I try and do with nearly every client. Now, a lot of people don't like focusing on this because technically it feels like you're making less progress because you're slowing down. But what we're doing is we're actually trying to figure out what we need to do to make this sustainable over time. It's difficult because your energy and motivation dips at this period, and we also need to allocate it to the blending of your habits with your lifestyle. But this is really key to making a new thing stick in the long term. Over time, habits do become easier. So with this, of the new actions within your new habits, what are the easier ones to integrate into your existing lifestyle? This is classic when I see this with nutrition and working out, if you can make it a little bit easier. And sometimes you might need to remove some of the really hard ones. Now, I see this with lots of clients. If they've got children, it's really difficult to do things. Lifestyle is really difficult to manage. So we have to find kind of compromises there. And we have to kind of pick and choose the ones that are more likely to be sustainable. And that's why you get a drop, because sometimes you will lose the effectiveness of the original habit program, but it is more sustainable. So think about this: initiation and integration. The last one, number 3, this is probably the most important one for long-term sustainability. Anchor points. Most rely on motivation to keep showing up time and time again, so you just hope that your motivation is there. But consistent people expect motivation to dip. This is a key point. So what happens is when your motivation dips, you just leave, right? We don't want that. So how can we prevent that? Like an anchor in a boat, anchor points keep you in place during these dips. They hold you in place. Environment and people are really key to this process. That's a little bit of a teaser here. Now, I'll do a video on this, going into a lot of depth with how to do this, because actually this is from a practical perspective quite challenging. But it's heavily guided by stage 1, right? And dictated by your environment and people. Why? Because we want to be around people and the environment who have shared values with you. Then that helps anchor you to the right actions that you need to take when your motivation dips. So examples can be, so environment. If you create rituals around this, so you go to a regular gym, yeah, and that could be by yourself to start with. Group accountability, people doing the same type of thing as you, or believe in the same cause as you, or have the same growth values as you. And maybe you've got a coach who wants the best for you and is pushing you in the direction that you want to go in. So you can have versions of this. Notice all of these are going in the same direction. Yeah, the direction is the same. They all keep you accountable, whether it's self-guided, in a group, you've got an accountability partner, or you've got a coach, mentor, and instructor. So some examples: classes, communities, clubs. Those are all examples of people who are directionally the same as you and will keep pulling you along that direction when you dip. Yeah. You can think about these kind of anchor ropes here for these tents. Now, over time, keep adapting your environment and add anchor layers. So let's say you go to the gym and then you have a gym buddy and you meet someone there and then you start going to classes together. So you have these layers here. Maybe you are building a side business. Find other people who are building side businesses. Stay accountable with them. Have discussions with them. Join communities. Work with a coach. And you don't even have to work with a coach really regularly. You can do it quite intermittently, because that can be one of your longer distance anchor points to make sure you're doing it quarterly. A little task for you to do now is identify one anchor point. It could be a goal check-in with yourself, a monthly meetup event. So I go to some of these in my city, or a group or community, online community. Remember, life is really unpredictable. So you've got to be adaptable and have that destination locked in, and then you can quickly mobilize and pivot around that. So quick reflection. Can you adjust your routine when life gets messy? What external anchors will hold you accountable when you're tempted to quit? We all have been through that. I've been through this many, many times. Are you with the right crowd? If you're not with the right crowd, and this can sometimes be difficult, because if you've got a certain set of friends and you're starting to do something new, they may be swimming in the other direction. And that may not be a problem when you're motivated, but when you're not motivated, they're pushing in a different direction. For example, if you want to do some project work at the weekend and everyone wants to go out or do something like that, you're unlikely to get that space and time to do it. So you want to think about, are you going in a similar direction? And sometimes it will require you to change different groups of people that you're with if you need that accountability. If you made it this far, well done. You might want to find out where you are in each of these 4 pillars. Now, I've actually got an assessment here which you can take. There'll be a link in the description below. You can take it and you can find your relative scores for each of these. Around a 60% score for each of these is a fairly good place. That's when I've seen people be able to stick to their parts. I ideally want to try and get people to around 80% for each of these, if possible. And that's where we start to see really strong results. So I hope that's been useful for you, and good luck. See you in the next one.